Alright, hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Games I Bought Recently, episode 39. Just so happened I was watching some videos the other night, feeling really nostalgic, and I was watching some old school golden years videos from some old friends on YouTube back from like 2008, 2009, and watching old pickups videos, in their 240p glory that looked like they were recorded on like some Dell laptop on the built-in webcam. I mean, the quality was atrocious, but it was also sort of infectious because the enthusiasm and the passion really came across in those videos back then, and for people talking about the games they had bought and picked up recently, and it just really inspired me to want to make another episode. Except I'm going to approach this with a little bit of a different mindset, because in the past I was making these videos so frequently that I was showing games before I had even had the chance to play them. So my new rule is that if I'm going to be showing you guys a game in a Games I Bought Recently video, it's going to be a game that I have played so I can give you some impressions. So no more are you going to see me just holding up a box and being like, yeah, this is cool, I paid this much for it. Alright, next game. We're going to talk about the games, because unlike what a lot of people were thinking back then, I do play the games I buy. So what do you say we get started with probably the highlight of this video? Plumbers don't wear ties on the 3DO. Wow, what an experience. Now, I want to preface this by saying that for all these years, I'm a huge 3DO fan, but for all these years, I have avoided gameplay. I've even avoided the classic angry video game nerd episode of Plumbers Don't Wear Ties that I've heard so much about, because I knew one day I would play this game, and I wanted to go into this as blind as possible and have the most amount of fun I could and get my money's worth out of this game. So I played this completely blind. I didn't know where the story went, and I played it on stream with my community, and we had such a blast playing this. We laughed. I was shocked at some of the things that are in this game. Some content in here, let me tell you, would not fly in a video game in 2020, to say the least. But what an experience. I really, really enjoyed playing this, because it's one of those games where it's so bad, it's like amazingly good because of how bad it is. It's fun to laugh at, and I think playing it online with my community on Twitch was just like, it made it even more fun, because seeing their reactions to my reactions, or people seeing this game for the first time, it was so much fun. And I did buy this like half a year ago or so for really finally get a good price on this after all these years of waiting. And just to let you know, because I haven't done a games I bought recently video in so long, all the games I'm going to be showing here don't necessarily mean I've bought them in the past few weeks. Some of these games go months back, but what does it matter? I haven't made an episode in a couple of years, so hey, let's include them, shall we? So next up is Barbie. Boy, we're on quite the streak here, aren't we? I bought this because I was challenging myself to learn my first NES speedrun, and I chose Barbie, of course, because what other NES platform are you going to choose? Obviously, the choice is Barbie. And wow, it actually really surprised me how challenging this game was. Really difficult, but also really fun. I mean, this game is a legit platformer. It's very dreamlike, obviously, because Barbie's dreaming in the game, but like it's just so surreal with the little cutscenes that they have in the game, with like a toucan delivering her dress in front of a fountain, which then leads to a dolphin delivering her to a boss fight with a king and king and queen crab, and it's just such a weird game that especially the boss battles in this were the highlight, like fighting soda machines and fighting French fries that you're dodging. I mean, man, let's not even get into the beach ball that has a cat playing with it coming out of some kind of opening trap. The game is weird, but it's really fun, and I'd encourage anybody to not be put off by the fact that this is a Barbie game. Give it a try. It's going to be more challenging than you're expecting, and you're going to come away with a pretty good NES platformer. Alright, this one I actually picked up not too long ago, and I played it for the first time, which kind of surprised me. I was kind of disappointed in myself that I had waited so long. And that's Lost Kingdoms on the GameCube. And we all know that GameCube right now is going kind of crazy price-wise. I mean, the prices are all over the place for this console, and they're on the rise. Somehow Lost Kingdoms has sort of eluded that crazy price increase for the most part. Can't say so much for the second game, but the first game is still relatively affordable. And I had a blast with this game. So this is developed by From Software, which you guys know who that is by now, right? Dark Souls, Demon Souls. And it's an RPG where it's also a collectible card game where you battle with the cards in real-time action-based combat with the cards that you collect. And it was so fun for me to put decks together. You'd put a deck together of 30 cards, and and you know, the cards that you summon will do battle for you. Some of them are totally hands off, like they act on their own. Some of them are influenced by your positioning and your timing, and some of them are just full on summons. And I had a blast. I mean, the game was the perfect length. This is an RPG that you can beat in like 1 or 2 sittings. You know, it's like a 6 to 8 or 9 hour game for your first playthrough, and that's perfect for me. I don't need no epic 50+ hour RPGs anymore. This was the perfect length. I really enjoyed the atmosphere and the mood, and the enemy designs were really weird and wacky. The camera wasn't the best, and the story was god awful. I had no interest in the story, and don't even get me started on the final boss. The final boss was beyond cheap. I couldn't take that boss. That boss was one of the worst and most difficult bosses and aggravating bosses because death sends you back to the beginning of the very long level. But beyond that, super good game. I have interest in trying the second one at some point, but that game is getting a little pricey, getting a little up there. Also, I hope you guys don't mind that we're going old school style here. You know, no flashy flying cameras and flashing lights and gameplay. Like, we're just going old school, showing the games and talking about them. I hope you don't mind. Next up is Nightshade. This was a viewer request. I do a thing on my streams where like people can donate to get me to play any game that they want, and one of my viewers, shoutouts to Jaws. Thank you, Jaws77, for this awesome pick, because this is definitely a game that was not on my radar. Nightshade on the PlayStation 2. This is what is considered to be the sequel to Shinobi on the PS2, which previously I had only rented, and my only memories of that game is just how difficult it was. So I went into this kind of expecting some level of difficulty, but I was not prepared for eventually how difficult this game is progressing towards. Now, I'm actually currently in the middle of my playthrough of this. I'm still playing it right now. I am on stage 6, I believe, which is stage 6, which is almost halfway through the game. And what I've been really enjoying about this one is the flow of combat. The flow of combat in this game is very simple at its core, where all you're doing is you just have a dodge button, you have a jump, you have a sword attack, and then you have a kick attack, which is used for breaking the defenses of your enemies. And once in a while you have magic abilities, which you don't get to use all that frequently. It's pretty simple, but the delicate balance of jumping and flying and dashing between enemies and knowing when to kick and break their defenses and knowing when to attack and deal damage is a very cool balance, especially during boss battles. The last boss that I did, the stage 5 boss, took me a good 45 minutes to defeat that guy, but I found out that it was because I wasn't playing aggressive enough. It's the kind of game where you want to try and be careful and dance around your enemies, but sometimes the game forces you into uncomfortable situations where you got to play harder and more aggressive than you would anticipate. And that's what I really liked about this game. It's hard, it's frustrating, but it's a good frustrating. It's a challenging kind of game that rewards you for getting to learn its intricacies. The only thing I'd say I'm kind of disappointed about right now is the fact that the level designs have been a little drab. The game started off kind of crazy, like fighting on top of a stealth fighter jet, and it's very Bayonetta-esque. But lately it's just kind of been these drab, boring dungeons and cities that are kind of just like whatever, but that's okay because the gameplay really elevates this beyond anything else. And yeah, I've been really enjoying this. It kind of makes me want to go back and test my skills at Shinobi on PS2 sometime. Alright, trust me, I'm not trolling you guys with this one, okay? You're gonna have to believe me, but trolling I bought this on eBay for like $7 shipped, and I'd always heard really terrible things about this. I took a chance on it. And now keep in mind, I played the patched version of Troll and I did not play the OG, completely broken, original release. I played the patched version, which means there's a mini-map. The game, you know, it tried to fix certain things about the frame rate. I heard the Switch version is still god-awful, but I played PS4, and my verdict, it was kind of fun, okay? Don't be put off, and I know I'm infamous for my Bubsy 3D video where people think I'm absolutely insane because I like Bubsy 3D and think it's actually a good game. This is a similar thing where I'm telling you guys you should not be completely put off by the reviews and videos you may have seen on this game, especially if you play the patched version. It's actually kind of fun. It's got a story that's janky and silly. Just the interaction between the main character and the troll is kind of just weird. It's just got this weird aura throughout the entire game. But if you like these kind of games where it's like, it's bad but it's kind of good, but you can kind of appreciate the idea that they had going for this game with sort of like that escort mission-based gameplay where you're taking the troll with you and you have control of him, but it's sort of this weird game that you can kind of laugh at but also kind of have fun, but it's far from perfect. You should give this game a try. They've fixed a lot of things with the checkpoints, so when you die, the checkpoints are more Of course, there's an ice cream truck going by right now. These videos are going to be unedited, by the way, so whatever sound you hear coming outside my window, you're going to get everything. The birds chirping, the ice cream man going by, dogs barking, whatever the heck is going on out there. Anyway, Troll and I, give it a try. The game's like $5. Sometimes you can get this game digitally for a few dollars, and physically it's like dirt cheap. You know, if you have some friends over or something and you're looking for a good laugh, this is a game worth trying. It's a little aggravating at times though, because yeah, it's still kind of broken and it can be kind of cheap in terms of like maybe getting into soft locking situations, but give it a try. Also, I was using glitches in that game, like clipping through walls and going out of bounds and having a blast with it. That I love that kind of stuff, so it kind of helped my enjoyment of the game as well. Alrighty. Next is Lair on the PS3. I picked this one up a few months ago. Yet another game where it's like, well, a lot of people originally avoided it because the reviews were kind of poor on it. I did the same kind of thing, but that's originally because I didn't want to play a game that focused on 6-axis controls. However, the game has since been patched and allows for regular controller gameplay. I love this game. I thought the vision for this game was ambitious. The scope and scale of the levels in this game are super impressive for the time when this came out, for the launch of the PS3, or near the launch of the PS3. And the one thing that turned me off though is later level. There was one level I got stuck on where I was like trying to destroy a dam to like free the water or something along those lines. It was way too hard. I got stuck on that level for like 2 hours and simply could not beat it. So I gave up on the game. But if I ever am able to overcome that hurdle or decide to go back to it and give it another shot, I'm all for it. I think the game is super fun. It's a shame what happened with this and Factor 5. It really is a shame on the history of, the downfall of that development company, but because of this game. But the game is dirt cheap. If you're into sort of fantasy, third-person action, flight-based games, give it a try. Seriously, this game deserves your attention. I know it's kind of fallen to the wayside. Nobody's really talking about this game anymore, but for the price that this goes for, it's worth trying today. Alrighty, let's see here. I'm gonna kind of quickly go through these next few ones. I don't want to go too long here. So I had always had Outrun 2, but I had never gotten around to picking up Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast, and I am a huge fan of Outrun 2 on the Xbox. So I knew eventually I'd have to get this. I got a good price on this because the disc was a little scratched. A really good price on it. Unfortunately, the disc was a little too scratched, so the music kind of loops. So when I play this game, I just play my own Outrun music. No big deal. I think I still actually prefer Outrun 2 over Outrun 2006. And that's mostly because, well, Outrun 2006 has drafting, so you go faster for drafting behind cars, which is a cool, I get it, that's a cool feature, but for me, I love the simplicity of Outrun 2, and also playing Outrun 2006, it features cars that go so fast, the OR cars. It was never originally intended for the original Outrun 2 courses, so you go so fast that it can be kind of overwhelming, and the courses weren't really designed to be going at that speed, so that's kind of a little hard to get used to, but the game is still fantastic, and being able to have access to the two SP tracks as well from the arcade is a real treat. Those courses are really fun. Timeless classic. If you ever have the chance to grab this cheap, make sure you do so, but I would just recommend that you pick up Outrun 2. Don't necessarily have to go for Outrun 2006. Alright, I couldn't find what I did with the Japanese copy that I bought for this, so I'm just going to show the North American box. Now, Blinkx is a game that I had played demos of back in the day. I think I rented this, and I didn't care for it. I didn't really like the time manipulation mechanics, but I recently found out that if you buy a Japanese copy, specifically has to be a Japanese copy of the game, which I did buy, and if you put that into your Xbox One, it's actually a different updated version of Blinkx. Now, there's a difference between the original OG version and the Platinum version. The Platinum version of Blinkx, Platinum Hits, is an updated version which makes bosses take less hits. There's they play around with enemy placements, item placements. It's sort of like an updated version of the game, and not a lot of people know that. But if you put the Platinum Hits version in your Xbox One for backwards compatibility, it installs the original version. The only way to get around that is to buy the Japanese version, put it in your Xbox One, and the cool thing is you don't play the Japanese version. It actually installs the American version of the Platinum Hits version onto your Xbox One, so you can play Platinum Hits in English on Xbox One in the HD version with all the updates. That's the only way you can do that. I know that was a mouthful. Anyway, I just wanted to kind of let that information get out there because it's not very well known that that's a thing about Blinkx. I had a newfound appreciation for this game. I actually really, really enjoyed coming back to this all these years later. I was having a blast through the first half of the game. I was loving the simplicity. The time mechanics are not completely in your face. You don't feel like you're pressured to do them, all too often. And the pacing, yeah, it's still a little bit of a slow game. It's kind of slow, not going to lie. Blinkx doesn't move the fastest, but if you use a certain third-party controller, this is the speedrunner in me talking, by the way. If you use a certain third-party controller, like a really cheap third-party controller, and this goes for Xbox One and original Xbox, if you move Blinkx diagonally, his movement speed increases by about 50%. So if you ever thought Blinkx was too slow of a game, try playing it with a third-party controller and do diagonal movement. Blinkx actually moves a heck of a lot faster. The more you know, right? But the further I got into the game, the more and more, and the core concept of Blinkx is that you have to defeat a certain amount of enemies to get to the end of the stage, but eventually they start making you kill like 20 or 30 enemies in these gargantuan levels, and if you miss a single enemy, you have to backtrack through the whole level to find it in order to continue, and there's a time limit, so if you run out of time, you have to reset the whole level. It got too tedious, unfortunately. I was loving the first half, but then the game just gets to a point where it's too much to handle, and I had to drop it yet again. Better appreciation for Blinkx, but it still didn't grab me to beat it. Just wanted to quickly mention this one because I think this game deserves more attention. This is Destiny Connect, a very simple turn-based RPG, very reminiscent of a sort of like a children's cartoon. So fans of things like Earthbound that are sort of RPGs that are grounded in a realistic setting with a sort of nice cutesy overtone to it, look into Destiny Connect. The one thing that really stood out about this game to make it feel unique was that you have this cool robot guy with you in the game, and you can customize him and change his classes to like a firefighter, a samurai, a boxer, and it changes his abilities. And it's sort of a pure, no gimmick, really, turn-based RPG, and you can beat this game in a couple sittings. You can beat it in the weekend. It's only about a 10 to 15 hour game, 20 hours if you're really pushing it. So if you're looking for something to kind of just sit down with, if you got more free time on your hands now and you're kind of indoors a lot lately, this is the perfect game to sit down with and kind of just chill with. Really recommend it. Alrighty, so lately, I've been trying to track down more copies of one of my favorite puzzle series of all time. I originally started playing this game on the Genesis when I was growing up, and I've been tracking down different versions, and that's Zoop. Good old Zoop. I loved Zoop on the Genesis, one of my favorite puzzle games, and that previously had been the only version I had played. Recently, I picked up a few new versions. I also got Super Nintendo version, but I haven't played that one yet. Wow, what a difference between versions of Zoop. If you've only ever played a certain version of Zoop, you should really try and track down other versions. They are so different. First of all, the Super Nintendo version is considered the easiest version of Zoop. Genesis is probably like the next hardest. Genesis is considered to be the hardest version of Zoop, if you didn't know, because of the speed at which it moves, and there's less blocks for the pieces to move towards the center. It's a very simple game if you've never heard of it, where puzzle pieces are moving towards the center of the screen. You have to clear them before they get to the center, and you lose matching colors and all kinds of stuff. Simple, hard to master. The Jaguar version is the only console version of Zoop that has a built-in leaderboard, so you can actually keep track of your high scores and your times. This is the only version you can do that in, which is kind of cool. The PS1 version is so different, and I'm assuming the Saturn version is pretty much the same thing, but the PS1 version is so different from other versions of Zoop. Completely new soundtrack in this version of the game, and the playfield, the pieces are all moving and dancing around. It's quite difficult to play, but it's a really unique experience with Zoop. The soundtrack, though, can be hit or miss depending on how you feel about 90s sort of hip-hop trance type music. Alrighty. Let's move on to some PlayStation 1 imports. So, I have bought way more PS1 imports over the course of, the past few months, year or so. I just kind of picked out a handful that I thought would be interesting to share, and I want you all to know that my taste in PS1 is far different than what you're probably used to. I'm into some really weird and obscure games here, so chances are you probably never heard of any of these games. But I figured let's share them, right? Let's get the word out there that PS1 importing is so fun because of the treasures out there that you've never heard of. So let's start with this is quite the name, Wolkenkratzer, which is German. It's from Asmik. And this is a weird RPG. It's a dungeon crawler where you're just moving up a tower, and in between you're kind of like re-equipping your character and their stats and what you feed them. So it's sort of like a pet simulator where your pet is like your character. Think of it this way, right? Like your own Tamagotchi in a way, where you're kind of like taking care of them and re-equipping them between battles as you're moving up this tower, and evolving them, in the sense that, you know, you're making them more powerful, not like they're actually evolving. But the battles themselves are actually one-on-one 2D fighting, but in a 3D engine where you're fighting these really weird monster designs. Just a really different game. Here's how you spell it, by the way, in case you're wondering, for those of you that are going to want to look this up. Wolkenkratzer, check it out. It's quite the weird game. Next is Keegan Drew. This is a third-person action RPG, very light RPG elements, but it's a ninja action dungeon crawler. It's pretty dark in terms of like the setting. It's very dark and eerie, and the battles in this, you get into not quite random battles. The battles are kind of predetermined by being able to predict where they're coming on the screen. If I remember right, you can see them coming by using the minimap in some way, if I remember right, or being able to see them on the map. Been a little bit since I played this, but it's worth mentioning because you can kind of fiddle your way through this game without any Japanese knowledge, and same thing for Wolkenkratzer. All the games I'm going to show here are games that you can play without Japanese knowledge if you're determined. There are cutscenes, there are story in this that you're going to have to kind of like mash your way through if you can't read it, but in terms of if you're into sort of Kingsfield type games, but I don't want you thinking that this game is going to be on the level of Kingsfield, but to kind of give you an idea of how it plays. That's what you can expect from this one. Kind of unique, worth checking out. Next up, got my games falling over here. Next up is Tonzura Kun, and this is how you spell this game, in case you are wondering. What a game. This is one of the strangest PS1 games I have ever played. You play as this character right here, who is trying to rescue his girlfriend, who is right there. And it's a puzzle game where you stack boxes of different heights. And the music is... wow. What a soundtrack this game has. It's like ska, hip-hop kind of music. And man, is this game weird with the character designs. One of the strangest PS1 games I've ever played. It's a little hard to find, though. A little rare. Might be hard to track this one down. But if you're a PS1 import collector, you owe it to yourself to check that one out. Next up is Buckle Up. This is a really rare PS1 import. This is not, yet again, another game that you're going to have a little bit of hard time tracking down. But, you know, I'm here to let you know about the games that are not well known, okay? Like, we're talking, these are some of the more obscure PS1 imports. You're not going to see these mentioned in most videos on YouTube. And this is an arcade style, like the kind of game that you would feel like you'd play on a Dreamcast. The best way to sum this game up, it's like a Dreamcast game on the PS1 to give you a sense of the arcadey style where you play as, you start as a truck, but you can actually steal other cars. So you kind of drive around this semi-open playfield, and you have to get from point A to point B. But in order to do that, you kind of need to switch different vehicles on the fly. So a good example of this is in the first level. You can cross over a body of water to a secret island and steal like a giant truck or a Lamborghini, I forget what car it was, and that allows you to bypass a certain part of the level that normally you would not be able to bypass. So it's very arcade based, the sound effects are very over the top, the music is very over the top, the controls are also very arcade like, but it's also mission based and exploration based. It's a very unique game. Check that out if you're a fan of games that are not so much, you know, racing games. You're looking for a arcadey style mission-based racing game, or driving game, rather. All right, next is Rhythm and Face. This is a rhythm puzzle game, I guess is the best way of putting it. And this is from the creator of LSD on the PS1, which recently is getting a lot of traction and hype because of the recent English translation that was released for that. This is from the same creator. One of the hardest games I've ever played. I couldn't make it more than a few levels in, but the basic premise is that you're trying to watch a face get constructed out of shapes and objects, and you have to replicate what the AI is doing. So you'll see the AI will sort of take a circle, say for example, that's supposed to be the eyeball, and it'll go to the beat of the music. It'll be like boom, 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 and then you have to then follow that same rhythm and pattern that they use to put that eye specifically where it is on the character, right? So it starts getting really hard and really complex, and you have to be really accurate with your timing. But if you're into rhythm games and you're into really weird games, or especially puzzle games, Rhythm and Face is the game for you. Alright, next is Boundary Gate. This is a PS1 RPG, but it's also on the PC FX. But I picked up the PS1 version first because this version has slightly better graphics in terms of smooth scrolling, because it's first-person dungeon crawler. The scrolling is smoother in the PS1 version compared to PC FX. The music is also different. However, one thing I didn't realize about the PS1 version going into this is that it doesn't have a mini-map, unlike the PCFX version. And before I started playing this game, I actually watched the Japanese playthrough and created my own guide to beat this game from start to finish. So I knew kind of roughly what to do, where to go, so that when I would be able to play it, I'd be able to make progress. And I made a lot of progress. I actually probably made it about 75% of the way through this game. Didn't get around to finishing it. Mostly because I was so disappointed over the fact that the really cool battle animations in this game are amazing, but they're so long, and it's really tempting to just turn them off. And I hate it when games allow you to turn off animations, because something in me wants to watch it every time because of how cool it looks, but at the same time it's like, man, these animations are long and I'd like to shut them off. So I kind of had that dilemma going on, and at its core, it's pretty simple. There's nothing special about this game. It's very by the books dungeon crawler. The best part about it is the music, and the crazy spell and character animations in battle are well beyond their time. But I also picked this up on the PCFX, which, yes, recently, earlier this year, shoutouts to Aldrich, my good friend from Japan, for hooking me up with a really great deal on PCFX in some of the games. I also picked up the PCFX version, which I plan on playing at some point, probably this year. Utilize my guide, start fresh, use playthrough with the mini-map, which will make this game so much easier to play. And appreciate the amazing MIDI-style soundtrack that is the PCFX version. So, yeah, if you're following me on Twitch, look forward to my PCFX playthrough of that at some point. Alright, let's see. Oh, I guess that's a good time to transition into PCFX pickups. Now, I did buy more PCFX games than this, but I'm only going to really go over the ones that were in my immediate vicinity here. Some of them I'm not sure where I put. They're in a box somewhere. And also only the ones I've played. So we might as well start with the jewel case ones. Chip Chan Kick, probably the best game I've played so far on the PCFX. This is a Snow Brothers kind of action platformer, you know, where it's single screen based platform, and you just go from screen to screen, destroy all the enemies on the screen by kicking objects and comboing them together, and then fighting bosses at the end of every 10 sets of levels. Great music, great style, really over the top, very lewd anime cutscenes going on in this game. It is PCFX after all. Very hard game too. I got stuck on the final boss of this game for like an hour or hour and a half. Really challenging final boss. But if you're planning on picking up PCFX, or you have one already, one of the best games you can play for it by far. It's just unfortunately a little pricey, but I got the best deal I could on it. Next is Sparkling Feather. Sparkling Feather is a really boring, mundane, top-down isometric turn-based RPG that is playable without knowing a darn bit of Japanese. It's very simple. The cutscenes are all anime and very over the top, but it's just boring. The game is just straight up boring. The battles are super long, and it's just, you have too many units to move. You're moving so many units at once. It just, to get through one battle takes forever, and I do not recommend this game. Alright, big box games. Battle Elite. Had a ton of fun with this game. A little hard to understand how to play it at first. There is a learning curve to this game. Another game that is really common on the PCFX, so pretty much anybody that has a PCFX owns this game. But this is a anime-style cutscene fighting game. So you're inputting your inputs and then watching the battles play out on screen, where you watch your characters fight after doing inputs preemptively or on the spot. So like countering, you have to be really quick to react to your enemies. But man, what a cool game this is. It's also one of the most technically impressive games on the PCFX, considering there's like no loading whatsoever in this game. So worth checking out if you're looking into the PCFX. Oh, one thing I forgot to show about Boundary Gate. I went pretty far with this. I also picked up both strategy guides from Japan for Boundary Gate, and as you can see here, they are quite the small guide, as you can see, kind of thin, but both of them had their own ups and downs in terms of dungeon maps and information about bosses. So I went pretty deep into wanting to play Boundary Gate. Team Innocent, this was an interesting game. It's pretty much considered to be like probably the only horror game on the PCFX in terms of the setting and the atmosphere. It's like you're playing a really janky Resident Evil sci-fi kind of third-person action game with some like monsters and zombie-type enemies. There's not a lot of fighting that went on in this game, and there's a lot of talking, a lot of different cutscenes, a lot of item management, like finding certain keys and going to use it in certain places. There is a guide on the internet that I was using to try and help get through this. It's definitely one of the better games on PCFX. It's not a terrible game. Technically, it's kind of cool to see the sprite scaling that goes on in this too, because it has pre-rendered backgrounds with character sprites that scale as you go from the foreground to the background of the environment, and all that is quite impressive at the time. It's okay. I mean, it's nothing crazy. Technically impressive, sure, for the PCFX. If you're hardcore into survival horror games, it's worth looking into. Also, Queen of Queens. This is a all-women's wrestling fighting game similar to the same style as Battle Heat, where you're doing inputs for the characters and watching it play out on screen in glorious real-time FMV scenes instead of animations. And wow, is this a trip. This was quite the fun game. One of the more fun and exciting games on the PCFX that I've played. I mean, just look at it, right? How can you not want to play an FMV wrestling game with all these wonderful women? And it was hard, though. It was a little hard for me to learn how to play. I still have to do some looking into this in terms of like figuring out how to actually counter specifically or do certain moves. It was a little confusing. I'm going to have to try and translate the manual that comes with this, and then we'll be good. We'll be golden after that. Okay. Next is, making sure I'm not missing anything here, is Pacio Khun Fx. This is my first ever pachinko game that I've ever played, and I played the PCFX version, and fun little game. I mean, pachinko video games are kind of just like something you throw on and chill with. I really like this game's sense of color and style, and the music was really over the top. Really colorful game, and some nice little sprite work and details in the boards themselves. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to play a pachinko game, I might as well play it on the PCFX, and that's what I did. It was, nothing special. It was just kind of fun to hang out with a pachinko game for like an hour on stream with everybody. Last PCFX game, I couldn't actually find what I did with the case before I made this video, but I also played Makiruna Makendo Z, which is one of the only other turn-based RPGs on the PCFX. It's based on the series it also has a game on PS1, and it also has another game that is on the Super Famicom. But this one is on the PCFX. It is a turn-based RPG with full-on anime cutscenes for your battle animations and character portraits that are animated as you're fighting, and a little bit of lewdness, all right? We're talking about PCFX here, so there's a little bit of lewdness in the cutscenes. This is a game I've streamed, so it's kind of archived on my Twitch channel if you wanted to check out some gameplay of it, but really rare game too, a little on the pricey side. Nothing special about it, though. I mean, it's just kind of cool to check out a game that has like no footage of it on the internet whatsoever, and it's very basic, very straightforward. The game it's a complete linear game, like from point A to point B. There's no exploration whatsoever in the RPG game world itself. It's just like, all right, go to this town, talk to this character, fight this boss, move on to the next thing. So it's pretty much that game in a nutshell. All right, so that's going to do it for everything I've selected for this video for physical games. I'm just going to talk about a few digital games here that I have listed. And you're probably like, wait a minute, you bought these games digitally? It's like, well, yeah, I do buy games digitally once in a while, especially if it's a game that I want to play at midnight without waiting. I don't want to wait for Amazon to come the next day or potentially have it delayed. So first game I wanted to talk about briefly, no spoilers whatsoever, just wanted to give you my opinion on it, is Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, this is a game that I can talk about in a separate video for sure. But I just wanted to let you guys know that this game, in my opinion, was completely worth the wait. It was amazing in terms of like the critical review score of it. I'd say it's like a 8.59 out of 10. The fanboy in me and the excitement of playing this game as a whole is like a 10 out of 10. You know, looking past some of the issues that it has, which would be like aerial combat, a little bit slow paced at times, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. But sometimes the pacing felt a little off. The side quests weren't the best in the later half of the game, you know, stuff like that. But the game was still amazing. I love the combat, the music. I may actually like the soundtrack in this game more than the original. Still got to think about that, but the music in Remake is it elevates this game above and beyond anything that you could have thought imaginable. They completely delivered. In terms of what I thought of the ending, which once again I'm not going to even mention what the ending is, but I am on the train of people that are excited for the sequel. I think this is a good thing for Final Fantasy VII in terms of where the series is going to go. Potentially next, and the unknowns, right? I think that's kind of exciting. So I am completely on board with whatever they try to do for the sequel. And yeah, I'm just hyped about it. You know, I still pick it up once in a while. I have intentions of speedrunning the game. I'm just kind of waiting for the glitch hunters to completely break it. They're still working on that right now, but once they're finished breaking the game, I might dive in on that. All right, next is Animal Crossing New Horizons on the Switch. First Animal Crossing I played since City Folk, and I wasn't the biggest fan of City Folk, so it's been a while since I played an Animal Crossing, and I was in love with this game for the first couple weeks. I was so into it. I loved designing my town. I was building my own like little Japanese water garden with bamboo and all kinds of fun stuff around it up in the mountains in my island, and I was just having a genuine blast with this game. But unfortunately I started to succumb to what happens to me with a lot of games, in that once I found out how to exploit the game through turnips, kind of killed my enjoyment. Once I found out how valuable turnips are in terms of being able to take turnips and just sell them every week for like extraordinary amounts of money, which just negates any fun in making money through any other means in the game, which I was having a lot of. I was having a lot of fun gathering insects, gathering fish, gathering materials and crafting things and selling it for bells, and I really enjoyed the economy behind it. But then the bells, it's kind of hard to ignore how OP turnips are with selling them on the stock market, and it killed my enjoyment, sadly. I can see myself maybe going back in the future, but the turnips just weren't for me, unfortunately. I hate to say it. But in terms of a chill game, the visuals in this game are gosh darn beautiful. The music, holy moly, one of the most chill, amazing soundtracks I've ever heard in a game. The concept of having a different song for every hour of the day was just like genius, absolutely genius. I loved it. Anyway, Animal Crossing. Still loved it, recommended it. It's just a shame what ended up ultimately happening with me dropping it and the reasons why. Okay, next is, I didn't buy this game, but I was given a review code for it, but I wanted to mention this because I was having so much fun with it, and that's SnowRunner. I've never played a driving truck simulator game ever. This is the first game I've ever played in this genre. Sequel to MudRunner, where the basic concept of this game is that you're just driving trucks through this countryside with roads and dirt paths and snowy paths, muddy paths, making deliveries. The best way to sum this game up is it's like Death Stranding with a truck, where instead of the baby and the stacks of stuff that you're delivering in Death Stranding, you're delivering wood and metal and bricks and building bridges, and wow, what a hard game. I never thought I'd have so much fun getting stuck in a snowy bank or getting stuck in the mud or snow for like a good 30 minutes trying to deliver some materials and trying to winch my way out, like pulling myself out of the mud and the snow with a little wire kind of pulling and tugging along. Or some of the most memorable moments I've had in this game so far is rescuing an oil tanker from this muddy swamp and pulling it out with my little Jeep, and eventually I'd have to come back with a truck and get it out. But man, or climbing a mountain. It was this winding path up this giant mountain, and I had a little scout truck, a little scout Jeep, and I was trying to wind my way up this path slowly. We're talking like 2 or 3 miles an hour, and I got to this banking turn where it was like this crazy sharp U-turn, and I started to make the turn, and my Jeep started to flip over. And if you flip in this game and your engine turns off, you have to start from scratch. You can lose like an hour or more progress, so it's a big deal. and I quickly winched and grabbed onto a distant little Charlie Brown tree, and I slowly started to flip the Jeep back over, and it took me like 20 minutes just to get around this one turn, and then eventually I made it to the top, and we saw this beautiful view of this beautiful landscape and this sky that was gorgeous. And what a game! What a game! I never thought I would fall in love with a truck driving simulator as much as I did with SnowRunner. This game is jam-packed with content, by the way. Like, this game will keep you busy. SnowRunner will keep you busy for a year straight. You can play this game. It goes to so many. You can go. It starts in Michigan, and then you can go to Russia and Alaska, and every one of those maps has like 4 maps of their own with so many missions. Gigantic game. I haven't even delved into the online multiplayer of this yet, but I just wanted to get the word out there for SnowRunner. The game is amazing. Who would have thought that one of the best games of 2020 was a truck driving simulator? Next game I wanted to talk about is Panzer Dragoon. The Panzer Dragoon remake that released on the Switch. I bought that day one, beat it a few times on the first day. The first day release of Panzer Dragoon Remake, which is a remake of the original Saturn version, built from the ground up. It was a little buggy in terms of, well, not buggy so much, but the aiming was a little weird and wonky. The visuals were a little flickery. But also some of the complaints were that the loading times were really long, but they're continually patching this game, so it's being updated. Also, the sound effects were probably the biggest gripe I had with it. They just didn't sound right compared to the original, but since then, apparently they have patched it. I haven't gone back and played it yet. I'm waiting for them to patch it one more time. That way, when I do go back, it will be, sort of maybe a more fully realized version. But I still recommend it. Panzer Dragoon Remake is a great game if you're into the original Panzer Dragoon. I think they did an overall good job with it. It's not perfect. They got a little bit of ways to go with it. Some of the problems that I mentioned, but they're still continually patching it. They've also added in a completely new and rearranged soundtrack because the first day one release of it was just the original soundtrack, unchanged. But if you're a hardcore fan of Panzer Dragoon, I do recommend it. If you've never played Panzer Dragoon before, it's a little pricey for what it is because it is a short game that you really are only going to probably beat once or twice and then call it a day. I'd recommend that maybe you just look into playing the original Saturn version, but that game is getting pretty expensive. So it's kind of hard to recommend to new fans of the series if you've never played it before. Real quick, I also wanted to mention a game I played on Steam, which is a free-to-play, completely free-to-play RPG that was made in RPG Maker, but the graphics, they do a good job of standing out. It's a little game called Grimm's Hollow, Grimm, Grimm's Hollow. It's an RPG you can beat in about 2 hours, and a lot of people were comparing it to like Undertale in terms of its visuals, and it's a game about the afterlife and coming to terms with the fact that you've lost your little brother and you kind of have to help him pass on. So it can be a little bit of a touching, sad story for certain audiences, for sure, the things that they kind of delve into with family relationships and whatnot. But you battle ghosts and you kind of like reap their souls and help them pass on to the afterlife. It was a cute little 2-hour weekend RPG that I just wanted to quickly recommend to you guys to check out on Steam. I think some of you might enjoy it. And lastly, the last game that I wanted to God, no, I don't recommend this game. It's called Dragon's B. This is a game that I bought recently on the Xbox One Community Showcase Marketplace, whatever the heck they call it. Essentially, it's this marketplace of all jank indie games. And this game costs $7. And yes, it's on Steam, but I wanted the Xbox One version. It's one of the worst games I have ever played mechanically, but one of the best games I've ever had for pure enjoyment. The game is so broken. It's supposed to be inspired by Mega Man, Sonic, and Mario, where you play as this little anthropomorphic alien guy, or dragon guy, that tries to rescue his mother who has been poisoned into her bed or something like that. The game is so broken that I spent about 2 hours trying to beat the first level, reached what appeared to be the first boss, and he was glitched out, and I could not beat the level. The game is so bad and broken. I've wanted to make a little highlight video of this for YouTube because almost no gameplay of this game really exists. There are no reviews, there's nothing, there's no full playthroughs because you can't even beat the game. But if you guys want to see a highlight video of Dragon's B, let me know and maybe I'll throw that together for you sometime. So that's going to do it. Those are the games I wanted to mention for episode 39 of games I bought recently. Feels good to make one of these again. Hopefully you didn't mind the old school format of just showing and talking about games. And please let me know, do you guys prefer longer games I bought recently videos? Do you prefer these videos to be 30 to 40 minutes? Or do you want them to be sort of under 10 minutes. Let me know, and maybe in the future I can kind of make ones that are a little more abridged, only showing off a handful of games instead of a large selection. So everybody, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.